Hey everyone, so let's go ahead and analyze this game from a tournament I played in the DMV action. DMV stands for DC, Maryland, Virginia. So that's in Herndon by the Dulles Airport. And this was a game that involved a lot of defense. I actually played this guy twice, both times I played in this tournament. His name is Timothy Hamilton, and he's a strong player. He's an expert, and he'll just throw everything at you, at least from what I've seen from these two games. First time I played him, he sacrificed a rook, and he had a really dangerous attack, but I barely slipped away. And it was a good practical choice, I think, for him to sacrifice a rook because, it's a rapid game. It's 30 minutes. So hopefully you get them in trouble and, the complications will favor you if you're the one who's attacking. But I had to defend really well in order to survive those games. And I ended up winning this tournament and the last one with 4 out of 4. So after a bit of a shaky tournament in Philadelphia where I didn't really bring it together, this was a good example. So I was really happy with this game. Now, I haven't analyzed it yet, so I'm going to put the games up here. We have on the open source site, leechess.org, we got the free software Stockfish loaded up there. And let's see, make sure that we're good to go. We are live. Okay. So I had a little problem where I was just doing 960, chess 960 or Fischer random chess, and my computer ended up dying. But we got like an hour and a half in, so figured I'd plug it in now. Moved over to the plug over to the outlet. Okay, so I did knight f3, and he goes c5. So we end up getting a symmetrical English, and this is a Sicilian invitation. So I could have gone ahead and played e4 and played a Sicilian. But we did c4 and then g6. So he might want to transpose into sort of like a dragon setup if I go d4. So it might almost be like a Sicilian with a Maroczy bind if he takes and I take back and end up playing e4. So he goes g6. He wants to get his bishop on g7 and control those dark squares. And I go g3. So same idea, both getting our bishops out, and the computer thinks it's about equal here, but white should have a tiny advantage. Let's see what happens after bishop g7, and now I go straight ahead with d4. So let's get that opening book here, and we can see what the best moves are. So yeah, d4 seems like the best way to go if you want to play for an advantage. You could go bishop g2, but I want to go with this, and he doesn't take it right away. He does knight f6, which scores well for black. I mean, it might transpose anyway. I don't want to push, though. I don't really like this. That's why this is kind of known as like the anti-Benoni, when you have the c4 and d4 structure. It could have transposed from an immediate c5 out of a d4 opening, but it started with a knight f3 opening. Same position, though. So after he goes knight f6, I go bishop g2, which seems to be the main way to play. And yeah, I don't want to go d5, so I want that flexibility. And he castles right away. He could take, but again, he really wants to wait for me to push. I don't want to push. I just don't like that structure. I like the fluidity. So after he castles, I castle. Seems like that's the best move. Either that or knight c3. This is the book, though, essentially. It's the main move is to castle. 702 people in their database did that, whereas 257 played knight c3. And it scored a little bit higher. Although this isn't, I don't think this is just master games, though. So we have to take that with a grain of salt. Can we change it? Oh, it is masters. It is master games. 2200 plus FIDE from 1952 to 2016. Okay, that's solid. We don't need, up to 2018. It's okay. We have a good idea from this. So they take on d4. After castles, I castled. Then they took on d4. Seems natural. That's going to happen at some point. The knight takes back. That's the natural capture to get so the queen's not in harm's way. And then he goes knight to c6. So he could go d5 right away. That'll get interesting. That'll be a whole different game. So the thing after knight c6 is he allows me to go knight c2, which it seems is the best move. Gives me good winning percentage. Average rating of 2382 played that. And people play knight c3 too, but by going knight c2, see, this is beginning to talk already about sort of defense. Defense sort of prevention. It's tied into defense, but it's preventing our opponent from doing what they want to do. So by going knight c2, we're putting some pressure on d5. So now we have 1, 2, 3, and that's coming soon. on c3, you're going to have 4 on that. And if they play d5, they're only going to have a knight and a queen. So, of course, we'd win the pawn. So what would happen, though, if he had played d5? I'm curious. How would I respond to that? Yeah, I assume I would just take, but you don't have to. Could almost transpose into something from a Catalan, I think. Taking is definitely the main move. Interesting tries were knight d2 and knight a3 by very strong players. You see 25-28. Average rating did knight a3. Seems natural. Taking on d5, still 24-93. Let's see, that seems like the main move. So if you take on d5, and let's say they take back, seems very drawish. A lot of people played knight to c3. Interesting. Just letting them give you an isolated pawn on c3, but securing the center. Even the computer likes it. Let's see. If they take on c3, pawn takes c3, and then, okay, let's say queen c7 attacks the pawn, and then it's saying just ignore it. Interesting. Bishop e3 drew in practice. The computer likes it, though. People did a little bit better in practice with queen b3. And let's say knight c6. And then, well, you take it and you give them an isolated pawn on c6 as well. And now, so we're equal in terms of pawn structure. I actually had a similar game recently, and I didn't really get anything out of that game. That's the one game that I ended up messing up. It was a completely equal game, and I was trying to squeeze a little something out of it. I didn't want to take a draw, so that's the one game that I lost recently because of that. So psychologically, I had to recover from that, remembering, or to learn from that in terms of mindset. Just take a draw sometimes. You got to just give it up. Just give them the draw. But yeah, it doesn't look like much here. So if they go d5, interesting for the future. If they go d5, takes on d5, knight takes d5. Yeah, I don't think I'll go knight c3. I think I kind of like knight b3, and it seems like it does pretty well. Let's look at that. So knight b3, and then they go either e6. Knight b4 is interesting. But then white does very well there. Yeah, you simply go knight c3 and just develop. That seems fine. Yeah, I'll probably do something like that. But if they would go, I don't know about e6. That's the main move, but they're securing that. You still go knight c3. Wow, that's still the move. It's not an intuitive move, but this is seen in the Sicilian as black sometimes. You just give them the c pawn and open up lines. Now, if they take, it doesn't look advisable. After takes, if they take on c3, I think we got rook b1 or bishop h6. Yeah, I like simply rook b1. This was a game that drew in 84. But yeah, rook b1 seems pretty good, and they could trade queens. But you can see, yeah, we're down a pawn, but we're probably going to get it back because they're going to have a lot of pressure. You can have a knight hopping in. You're probably going to get b7 back pretty easily. So let's say they go knight c6. We can easily go knight c5. Oops. Yeah, we can easily go knight c5 and get it back, or simply just ignore the pawn and just keep on developing with bishop e3. But yeah, you go here and you get the pawn back, but it's still kind of equalish. I don't know. So maybe that's a good try if white is just playing, if black is playing for kind of a draw, just to go d5. But my opponent went knight c6. Clearly, an aggressive player. He doesn't want to draw, and I don't want to draw either. So let's fight. Okay, so knight c6, and then I go knight c2, tucking the knight away, and that seems to do pretty well in practice. Wow, you could even go c5. Seems, I don't know. I want to develop my pieces. I don't really want to go c5. I'll look at the theory later, but I'll show you the game. So I did knight c2. He goes d6. And yeah, interestingly, it just seems like black is not doing very well here. Look at all these wins with white. Knight c2 is giving 43% wins, average rating 2382, and only 17% wins for black. 40% draws, that's the gray. So as far as practice is concerned, we're doing very well with knight c2. So it looks like I recently actually looked at this line before playing in this tournament. I just happened to look at a game with it. So I think I was kind of refreshed on that. And I hopefully played the best moves. Let's see. So d6. Now, of course, the knight comes to c3. That's just the way to go. We have a Grishuk versus Navarra. where it was drawn. Some games pretty recently played with this. So knight goes to c3, and he does bishop e6, of course, the most active. And I remembered, because I played a game recently where I didn't defend that pawn on c4 with my pawn. I think I played knight e3. I was playing a blitz game online, and I was wondering, can I play knight e3 here? And actually, knight e3 does well. So yes, you can. But I remember looking at this b3 line. I think maybe in the version I was looking at, b3 did better. Here it's saying, I mean, it's close. It's saying knight e3 is actually a good move. But let's see, we have 2388 average rating went for this. And we have 2395, so similar. And then knight d5 was a little bit lower, but they're all in the 2300s. I don't know. I just feel like this seems premature. I don't want that yet. I'd rather wait on that on knight d5. I'd rather play a waiting game and just build it up. But see, what I like to do is not necessarily the Meraxi bind in full with c4 and e4, but to keep that bishop on g2 open. And sometimes I've even done it something like this, where you have both bishops open. But I do kind of like the knight e3 idea. So I was playing this in a blitz game, and I think I like won one and lost one. Maybe did two with it that I might have won, but I'm pretty sure I lost one too. But I had decent positions. Let's look at that real quick. So I did b3, but let's look at so that's the main line. But side line knight e3. Let's just see a quick sample line. So yeah, queen d7 is reasonable, or rook c8. He might want to come in with his bishop, and then I like in the game you can go rook e1, so you don't trade bishops. He can go, now the computer's really liking black here after bishop h3. And what if I go bishop h1? It did well in practice anyway. The computer's liking h6. No one played that in practice. Or h5. But in the game, actually, black lost playing h5 in this game in 96 between two people of the exact same rating, apparently, 2460. Strong players, like IM strength. So knight ed5 was played in the game. Let's look quickly at the game. ed5, h4. Okay, it's not a big deal. And then knight takes f6 was played. Bishop takes. The bishop came to h6. The pawn took. That's probably premature to take. Yeah, it seems like it diminishes anything that the computer thought the black had there. And then bishop g7. Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's not a ton here, but queen d2 it's comfortable for white, but I think it's about equal. Yeah, there's not much to hope for here. So yeah, I think b3 is good. I like b3. And the computer seems to agree. Again, we're not going to put too much stock in that, but just as I'm going to kind of use it as a reference, especially with the very sharp lines, we're going to use the computer just as an assistant. So, but not as, doctrine. So after b3, queen c8 is what it likes, and white does really well with that in practice, 67%. See, so they don't really want to do that. It looks like queen d7 is the main move, and that's what he played. I did rook e1. So I remember looking at some games where I liked how I went with rook e1, because I remember there was one where they allowed a bishop to h3 and they ended up getting like e4 and f3. And I'm like, I don't really want that. I'd rather keep my light squared bishop, and I think it gives me more winning chances. So I just went ahead with rook e1, and statistically does very well. We got 2378 doing that. 2408, slightly higher rated, played bishop b2. But I think, and I'm going to get out of the opening soon, but just want to see what the best moves are or try to figure it out. But I think so far so good. So playing knight c2, b3, and rook e1 seems fine. So white should be a little better here. So after rook e1, now he did bishop g4. That was, okay, there was a draw like that in a game average rating 2278. Yeah, I think, well, bishop h3 is pretty equal, it looks like. Not rook f d8 or anything else is pretty well. But it looks like bishop to h3 is fine. So he did bishop g4. I didn't mind that. He's stopping e4, I guess, but I don't care. I'm not going to play e4 right away. Maybe later on I'll roll him with my pawns, but not yet. So if he goes bishop h3, I would probably go bishop h1, which actually doesn't do as well in practice, funny enough. The best move, it seems, is, well, rook b1 did better, but it was only drawn. The computer likes it. It got 50-50. Bishop h1 did slightly better for black, actually, interestingly. But let's just try it. If bishop h1, Yeah, I guess he was doing similar to what theory suggests because he did the bishop h3 and he did knight g4 stuff in the game too. Um, hmm. So if he goes knight g4, I go bishop b2 because he's hitting the knight, and he gets his queen out to f5. That's a bit annoying. f3 lost both games. Wow. Bishop f3 was the only game where white had any chances there. Although, funny enough, the computer likes, see, that's where they're diverging. The computer likes f3, says it's good for white. It's not a move I'd really want to have to do, although in the game I did do something like that. But let's see why it lost in those games. f3. Oh, wow. Queen takes c2. Queen takes, bishop check. That's messy. If you get queen takes, bishop d4 check, got to play e3, knight takes, and now this nasty attack. Wow, that came out of nowhere. I mean, clearly, well, white weakened the position with f3, and the pieces are active for black. And you have to give the queen back, I guess. Yeah. You go queen d2. Well, the king is in a really precarious situation. So you have to give it up. You take, but look, now you're forked. So he ends up winning the exchange out of it. Interesting. So was that the only way to go? Queen f5, if f3. Yeah, the computer didn't even see it right away. But queen takes c2 is suddenly really strong. So you can't go f3. I guess that's why you have to go bishop f3. And then you get something like knight ce5 is pretty active. Queen a5 won a game. Let's see. Knight ce5 hits the bishop. And then we have knight d5 was played. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's not terrible. But I don't really want to give up that bishop on f3. They can take it anytime they want, basically. But yeah, this is not really a game that I'd like to go into. So that's what happens after bishop h1. So it seems like you kind of just go rook b1. That's the main move there in this position, or the move that did the best was rook b1. And if they do rook a8, this won a game. Oh, then they did bishop. Okay, well, I mean, a lot of it could go either way. It could transpose. But so maybe bishop h1 is not so terrible. But rook b1 does seem advisable. I remember when I was looking it up earlier that I knew that was a reasonable move to do, rook b1. So I ended up getting it in. After bishop g4, I do rook b1. So the only game in the book was an immediate bishop h1. I'm like, well, why would you go bishop h1 if you didn't go bishop h3? Oh, it probably transposed or something. I don't know. I'm not sure why they would do that. So now we're out of the book. Okay, now we can stop messing with that explorer, and we'll just see what happens from here. So rook b1, and then we have rook ac8. Yeah, I really don't like bishop at g4. It didn't help him because he ended up going back to h3 anyway. So it slowed him down a bit. And I just keep developing. I go bishop e2, and we'll see how the structure develops. But I feel pretty comfortable here. I have a little more space with this pawn. And again, I can play e4 anytime I want. But I kind of do want that knight e3 idea at some point and get those knights moving. That's what happened in the game. I didn't play e4. So after bishop b2, he goes bishop h3 now. And it seems like the h5 idea is really, that's what was seen a few times, and black did well. There was that game where black won, but it seems like just leave it on h4. But he goes bishop h3 right away, and that's just sort of wasting a move. So now, yeah, Stockfish just says leave it there. I don't know. I just want to keep my bishop. I would really rather keep that light squared bishop. It is a bit awkward because you let his pieces in. But I think really what I was doing is I was playing more of the complicated line, keeping more pieces on the board. If I play something like e4, bishop takes, yeah, I mean, clearly white has that Maroczy bind with a little bit of a squeeze on the position, but I really don't think it's too much. Let's say, okay, let's look at that line that it's giving e6, maybe to play d5 at some point. I would probably try to get queen d2 and rook d1 in soon. Let's say I did that right away. Then you got, okay, a6, whatever. Let's just give a sample line. Rook d1. Now rook d8, and then knight e3 secures it. Yeah, something like this could be comfortable. And I'm really latching on to d5. Oh, he gets b5 in, huh? Takes, knight takes. Oh, because of e4. So he can play b5, oops, because if I take, and knight takes, once I move my knight, he gets to take b. Okay, so I have to be careful here. Well, I've seen f3 played in some lines like this. So maybe after a6, should we play f3? Or knight e3 immediately? Still gets b5. Oh, but now, okay, but first he's going to defend d8. So let's say he goes rook here. Yeah, then we get f3 in. Okay, and we secure it. Yeah, this was playable. Maybe in the future I'll play like this. But I don't know. He didn't refute bishop h1. Let's see if there's any other way he could have refuted it. So I go bishop h1. He gets his knight on g4. Now, again, he should have gone g5 probably. But now that I kind of try to show that these are awkwardly placed. So I get f3 in. And he goes knight ge5. So he's got active pieces here, pretty active pieces. But again, that bishop on h3, it turns out to be misplaced in this game. Let's see if there's any way out of that for him. So I go queen d2. I was thinking about certain lines where if I I was considering knight e3, but I didn't really like this. Or even knight, yeah, some lines I just don't like bishop h6. So I went for queen d2, but it seems like knight e4 was possible to g5 or to f2, but I ended up getting that in soon. So I go queen d2, which now it's starting to favor. I mean, I really just want to develop, I want to get that rook possibly shifted back to here, or even leave it there for now. I might get e4 in at some point. I might go knight e3, and this guy might get hit with f4 too. So after queen d2, now he plays for a cheapo. I don't think this was correct. I mean, he goes knight a5. It's just moving his knight out of the way. Okay, what's his threat? So again, this is defensive thinking. This is really the beginning of defensive thinking because he's trying to throw everything at me now. Well, with the knight on a5, you say a knight on the rim is dim or grim. You just can't do much there. So what's his threat? He's trying to take on c4 and then hit the queen and the bishop and then win the knight. So winning some pawns. So for example, let's say I don't do anything. I don't know what's a waiting, like a passive move I can do. Let's say I try to play e4. Well, then he's going to go ahead. He's going to take. I take back. He takes. He's forking. Okay, I move somewhere. He takes. It's just over. Because if I take back, he takes on c3. If I move the knight, he just escapes. And he just won a couple pawns. We got 5 against 7, so it's lost. Yeah, so we clearly can't do that. So I just go knight e3. I say, okay, I see your threat. I stop your threat. And again, if you really want bishop h6, I can probably just go f4 and shut your bishop down and hit your knight. Because that knight's not permanent on e5. And the bishop on h3, now again, I can go like knight e4 and then go knight f2 or knight g5 and hit that bishop on h3. So yeah, I don't like knight e5. I think it's starting to turn in my favor. And yeah, the computer agrees it's giving me like a pawn value up. So let's see why. It says his best move is just to go back. Well, what did he do in the game? He after knight e3, and just to kind of admit it didn't work out. But he goes b6. So I think instead he wants to bring his knight back to b7 maybe in here. But it's not, you got to get it right back in the game. So after b6, then I went ahead and did knight to e4. So yeah, you should have gone knight c6. So I do knight e4, and let's promote this. This is the main line. We'll promote that. So I go here. Now thinking about bringing my knight over to attack his bishop. The other move, it says I could have just gone ahead with this move to d1. That seems fine too. And then if he brings his knight back to b7, now I can do something like knight to d5. And this is like your classical sort of bind, well, without e4, but you get that bind on d5. And I like the knight on e3. Sometimes you want it behind the pawn on e4, but notice that by not playing e4, you're more solid in some ways too. And this bishop will come out later, even if it doesn't right away. Like let's say you have a pawn at f3 and e4, you're securing your center. And again, I mean, you're going to get eventually, you want to rule your pawns, but you want to wait till the moment is ripe for that. So yeah, I could have done something like this. And if he goes, I don't know, let's say he brings his bishop back. If he plays e6, well, then he just weakens his position. And then I bring my knight back. I hit the bishop. Oh, that bishop's going to be lost for a knight. I'm going to have the bishop pair. Yeah, it doesn't look good. So if he goes bishop to e6, then I could do something like, well, now it wants my bishop to go back to g2. What else? Yeah, I could do knight f4 right away. Something like this should be fine. Hitting the bishop. And yeah, you got a good grip on the position. And getting the bishop pair too. So after knight to e4, what did he do in the game? He goes f5. So he went right for it. And I don't think this really worked for him because this is where he just threw everything at me. And I was looking at that. I'm like, okay, if you go f5, I move my knight, I hit your bishop. You go f4, I maybe can take it. I didn't look at the entire line, but I was thinking like, okay, that seems a bit loose. And not only that, but when you play f5, like you're weakening e6. Your bishop is not defended by your queen anymore. So it just seemed like it's not a big deal. Now I had to think between knight g5 and knight f2. And I ultimately settled on knight f2. I was thinking, because again, that bishop coming to I don't know, just possibilities of the bishop coming to h6 seemed annoying. So you have to think about, just like you're always looking at your own possibilities, think about your opponent's possibilities and stop them. So this was just a more solid move, especially if he gets f4, and as it turned out in the game, it worked out really well. And the line it's giving is exactly what happened in the game there, interestingly. So I went knight f2. It just feels real solid, and I'm getting that bishop. That bishop's going to be mine. He's going to get some activity, but I mean, I have a lot of pieces around the king defending, and the f3 g3 is not such a bad structure, especially with the pawn on e2. Everything is kind of solid there. So he doesn't have enough to give up the exchange, I don't think. Now, if I had gone knight g5, I don't think it was so bad. I'm hitting the bishop. He's going to get f4, but it might have been a slightly worse variation. Now, if I take on f4, see, the difference is when the rook takes, I don't think I have the same line, and that just doesn't look comfortable to take and have the queen. It looks less comfortable. I mean, I could take and go bishop g2. I could have done that, yeah, but it just doesn't look as good. So I think I settled on the right move, which was knight f2, nice and tight. So he's got to go f4, only way to save his bishop. He's already in sort of a critical situation here. So he goes f4, and I said, okay, now I could do something, you know, I can move my knight to g2 and say, all right, you take me, I take back, but then the bishop escapes. And I don't really get anything there. So this is sort of a critical position. I think it is a critical position. So you have to have the guts to just say, hey, I'm just going to take that pawn on f4 in this position. And it gives the exchange, really. It's just the exchange up. Because when you take here, well, maybe not the full exchange. It depends what he does. But when I take on f4, after rook takes, I'm pretty much getting the exchange after. Try to think about what you would do. Well, just already pointing the arrow there. But the idea is that you want to unleash the queen while trapping the bishop, because you can attack it here, but the queen hits it. So by going knight e to g4, you're blocking it, and you're threatening to simply take it. And if bishop takes, now you simply take the rook. Okay, and if rook takes the knight, you just take back, and you're winning the exchange. And again, you have that safe knight on f2 to guard everything. The other move was, so I was looking at, maybe he does something like knight f7 and just says, all right, you have this pawn structure problem, on your king is kind of open. But yeah, now you're taking it on g7, you're opening up the king, and you can still do the same thing with knight eg4, and you're trapping his bishop, so the bishop's got to give himself up. And look at that, now we can actually take back. I mean, you could probably take with the knight too, but why not with the pawn? Because now we've actually shored up our weakness, and you're just up a clean pawn. His king's more exposed than yours is in a way, because you can get on d4 or whatever, and you have this really nice, I mean, yeah, they're slightly extended, but the knight on f2 is actually guarding g4. So yeah, I like white there for sure. Just have a clean pawn with a really good position. And then we might finally get e4, although I still kind of like my bishop open here. Okay, so what happened in the game was rook takes. Now I had to play this move, knight to g4, and I say, hey, give me that material. Give me the material and prove it to me. A lot of times that'll win you games. You got to play accurately though, but then we have to, once we win the material, we got to have the right technique. I felt good about it, but let's see if I did the right thing. So he takes, I take back with the pawn, keeping my knight there, and he has to take, so now I'm attacking this. So again, he has to take with the bishop now. After bishop takes, after that, oh, sorry, what did he? Yes, he did. Now, I don't want to take that. I don't want to take his bishop and allow the queen to take with check. I guess I could have, but the computer likes it, but I don't know. I just felt a bit weird about it. I decided to throw in the check immediately on d5, and then I went with a really active queen move. Yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't, like intuitively as a human, you just don't really want to let more pieces into g4, although getting rid of his bishop has its merits for sure. Trading down pieces, getting the bishop pair, and that makes it easier for this bishop to just shore up the king, strengthen everything. But yeah, I just went with bishop d5 check. and inviting him to play e6, which would weaken d6. Yeah, he just moved his king over. And I can still take on g4, it looks like. Interesting. But again, I think it's just not, as a human, I really preferred queen g5. And I'm putting pressure on it. So it was bishop d5 check, queen g5 immediately. I go here. Oh, well, I said I was losing for a second. Did I blunder? But yeah, the evaluation, though, is liking it a lot more after knight takes. Let's just look at that line. Let's see how we can get away with this. Takes, takes. Well, I mean, we could just simply move the king over. Yeah, just move the king over. And it looks a little scary. The king's open. But, I mean, you can use that line for your rook. You bring the other rook to the f-file. You kick the queen out of there. If you play like e3, you can tuck your queen on g2, similar to the game. So, yeah, that's probably, you know, more of a clear win, but in terms of the bishop pair. But I don't know. I mean, again, I like my knight on f2. It's guarding things. So I just go queen g5. And he tucks his bishop back here. So the better move was probably to f5, centralizing it. But he goes to h5. And then now I tuck my queen on g2. So when I go queen g2, I'm just supporting my king. I'm short on time. I had like a few minutes left. He had like 9, maybe, no, by now he had like 6 or 7. I had 3 with the 5-second delay. So I'm just playing solid moves. Forget about what the computer says, maybe in a long game, but I just want look at that. I got my knight's covering my king, my queen's covering it, my bishop could come back. He's got nothing. So I just know he's got nothing strong to do there, and I feel comfortable with the position. I got these bishops aiming in, and I'm just going to put pressure on him and trade down. So after queen g2, he goes rook to f8, and I go h3. So again, I was short on time. I was looking at knight d3. It looks like I do it right away. I really like that, to trade the knight and put pressure on the diagonal. But the thing I didn't like about it immediately was I give him the g4 square. So again, I'm thinking defensively. I'm like, let me just play h3 first. I could do knight d3 anytime, but it just seems like the safer thing to do. And I can bring my king to h2. And the computer still says the evaluation is almost 2 points up, which would be a full exchange. But I'm only up in exchange for a pawn. So theoretically, I'm only up a point in terms of material. But yeah, it's almost a winning position already. So after h3, he goes e6. So he hits my bishop. Okay, I just move it back. But now he's softened it up here, so I'm going to target that immediately. And after bishop here, he goes rook to f4. Maybe a bit dubious. And of course, I'm going to go knight d3 anyway. Now, he's got to move his knight back. Yeah, just get the knight. Like, that knight needed to just admit he's not good on a5, get back in the center. But he goes rook f4, and of course I go knight d3 now. So I'm finally ready to move that after I'm sure everything here is secured. And it looks like his best move is to go back. But then he just keeps on sacking. He goes bishop h6. Now I stopped recording the moves here because I had like a couple minutes left. So I'm like, let me just blitz it out. Just play the game. Just focus on the moves. After bishop h6, I said, you know what? I'm just going to take it and go bishop c1. Interestingly enough, the computer, we'll notice that when he goes there with his bishop, he's leaving this undefended. I mean, there's a lot going on here. So yeah, this is that I do like rook d1, but I can just take it. I'm sure that's winning pretty clearly too. Yeah, after bishop takes, and then I just went ahead and went bishop c1, and we traded, and now I'm up 2 exchanges, and he doesn't have any attack. So I mean, so from a human perspective, I'm fine with that. From a computer perspective, yeah, you could have gone ahead and played rook bd1 here. That's interesting because now we're really threatening this immediately. We're threatening to take with no, not just to take it and win it because the pin. So he has to. Well, what does he even do there? Yeah, I mean he's just got to give you this. He can't even go here with his knight because you simply chop it off since the pin on this. So yeah, those 2 bishops are just killing. I mean this is winning. Rook d1. Yeah, I like that because you're just threatening it. Now the thing is, I was looking at taking immediately, but I'm like, I don't need that. If you go here, bishop takes check. He moves his king. I'm like, yeah, that's good, but I'd rather just take his rook with my knight. So I think this was really the clearest solution. So like, yeah, maybe the computer gives plus 6.6 now, but after this position, and bishop c1, like rook f1, but bishop c1, just trading down, it still gives +4. So like essentially being up a rook. So well, 2 points for each exchange. But again, I've killed his play, and it's just a pretty straightforward win. So practically speaking, I think it was good. And after rook takes, I don't have the rest of the moves. I think he played king g8 or something, and I moved my rook to here. Something like this ended up happening, and I ended up like shifting my queen up. So like he did queen e7, trying to maybe looking at h4. I moved my queen here, and somehow I ended up getting like he somehow got b5, and I think he does a6 and b5 or something. But somehow I remember getting this in c5 after he played b5 and undermining this. And then, yeah, I ended up, so just a sample line. It's not exactly what happened, but it was something like, let's say he moves his king. Actually, his king did end up on the wrong square. Well, it was something like this, actually, where he does king here. And then I go, like, I swing my queen over. No, my king was actually, I did this. Yeah, I just put like prophylactic. I probably could have gone to h2. But something like this happened. And then I don't know how he got b5, but somehow it ended up like this. And then I just completely, undermined everything. He got his knight back. I take with the rook. I'm hitting this. And then I ended up like winning that one too, and everything broke in. So as you can see, like once you have a strong defense, you kill their attack, then you get to counterattack. And now it's a simple win. I've killed all the attack on my king, and I've infiltrated. So that's an example of how you can just, let them attack you, kind of make an ugly looking move like g takes f4. It's not the most comfortable move to make, but it gives me winning chances. I want the line that's going to give me something that I can win with. And if you give me that exchange, not only that, but I'm getting rid of your light scored bishop. I could have taken it, or with the knight early on h3, or he takes this way, and I could have taken on g4. But that bishop's always kind of in trouble. And yeah, I just have the exchange, and I have active bishops. So don't be afraid. It doesn't matter who your opponent is. Just play objectively. If you think there's a way to win material, and you have, even if it's a little bit messy, just go for it. If you think there's good chances that you can turn that into a win, but you have to consolidate your position and actively counterattack. So hopefully that was helpful in terms of how you can defend, and as well as some of the opening theory in that knight f3, c5, c4 line. And just keep in mind that defense could be a really powerful weapon to win sometimes.